affordable copies of this one left.
Have you renounced pleasure? In a word, no. Have you renounced pleasure? No. Well.
Not if I can help it.
Yeah, here, there's 3, and here's 4, I just want to make sure. Maybe I should.
No. I may have taken one question out here or there, just, but I don't think so. Maybe one of the whole.
You're just trying to see if we're paying attention. I know.
Just go by the questions. I think you could read the book, I think you could answer the question probably without reading the spaces. Now you tell us. Probably do need to read that. Of all of us. Right. Okay. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a short. Well, you know,
Oh, eventually.
as I typed these, to me, we
together all the
covered
time.
one
You can say
this last time, and so.
You can
so
do
I
it,
was
buddy.
like, wait.
She wanted to sit with him, she could have sit over here.
That's exactly right. I knew somebody was there.
I'm sure there's more we can say. Right. This is the original.
We're gonna run out of time anyway.
Oh, I haven't done the back
We are.
either.
What's going?
This is not, this is, we're not using, I'm not using that at all. Oh, well, I don't know. Hi. Yeah, let's just dive into the question. This week we're going to talk about day 1, the nature of true joy.
Which we discussed a little bit last time.
Right. Do you remember how much we discussed? See, it was a read.
It wasn't really focusing on these questions. We had a general open discussion before on what we thought joy was, and I think I touched on a little bit about the difference between happiness and joy. Yeah, so I think it would be a good idea to try to find joy as a context for next week's work. Continue the conversation.
I was going over that in my mind.
Yeah. Well, one of the quotes that the Dalai Lama said, that joy subsumes happiness.
Yeah.
So joy is something broader than happiness. Joy may be more soulful, deeper, and it's the emotion. Happiness may be the result of the joy that you are acknowledging, experiencing.
I agree. And then on page 33 is where there's a list of all the different words sort of, I guess, defining.
Yeah, so if we go to 33.
Yeah, that would be helpful for you to have your book. Okay, well then you can look on the book. So these are feelings that joy is associated with. Which ones speak to you the most? Any of them? That's not a question.
Wonder. I still experience wonder when I watch the birds take a bath in my bird bath. There's just something about that there they are, and the prey could come, but just take a bath, splash around.
And it's spontaneous, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not that, it comes to you unexpected.
It's unexpected.
Versus going to a birthday party, there's expectation there, there's happiness, there's joy.
It's a gift, it's just like this. But it's still at my age. Wonder can be a rare commodity. And so the natural world will bring me wonder. That brings me joy?
I'd say a deep sense of gratitude.
And amusement kind of, to me, goes along a little bit with that wonder. And I think of babies laugh, babies do that.
Let's say delight.
Yes.
I have a couple of little boys that I teach who, well, one of them came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, you know, you're not mean, you're helping me. And then he went to his mom and said, my brain is leveling up.
That's awesome.
And then there was another little guy who had a similar sort of epiphany of, I can't believe it, my brain works. I didn't think it worked. I mean, the joy was just, I videotaped the tail end of it when, you know, I couldn't get my phone out fast enough
Right.
to grab it, but oh my gosh, joy, it was just
That's
like,
a great story.
yeah.
And that's the type of thing that makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, why did he think that his brain doesn't?
That's
Is there
exactly
something
what I would
about
do.
our assessment-based education system that
well, I mean, you
dumbs
know,
down?
he was 7 and couldn't read and,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, when you go to school, you're constantly told you can't
Right.
do this, can't do that,
right,
because that's what tests are.
yeah, yeah. Can't close anymore.
You know, to me, joy is something I feel in my heart, that most of the time. And happiness is something that just, you know, happens to make you happy that day or something. But I don't like that. I don't feel that joy most of the time.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm hearing you say that joy in the heart is powerful, it's there,
It's a
it's solid.
foundational kind
And happiness could be like contentment, where
Right.
it's not quite elevated emotion.
Joy can also be a lot quieter. It doesn't need to be explosive, and it's a lot more needed. I think because of that.
A lot more what?
It doesn't have to be just by happiness almost demands nothing.
As a reminder, please speak up for the folks. who
Oh,
are
yeah, I
hearing
see
us.
those signs that are all over.
I was trying to be subtle. Because there are at least a couple of folks who are joining us online, so.
Anyway.
Since we're tech-alike, could you bring that in a little more here? So, what about, this is one I hadn't really thought of too much before, but relief also as a expression for joy. Can you think of a context that might work for you?
Tumor is benign.
Yes.
The doctor says something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or a truck, and the opposite leg loses a tire and it's coming at you, even when it misses.
Yeah.
Or you pass the test.
Yes.
It's the opposite of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty long list. Can
It
you
is
think
a
of
long
anything that isn't on here that you think would be joyful?
I think Jim is enjoying joy right now, and relief. He's,
Well, they
They
told
took the
me
needle out.
sugar and you
Okay.
went for it. I'm with you.
Carry on.
I had my piece of.
She had a huge piece.
Boy, you just saw half of it.
That's true. That's probably true. And I don't serve it at home, so he's really having joy over there. I think that's
beyond
happiness.
happiness, I'm enjoying.
I think so too. That's happening.
Let's take a look now.
It's temporary.
It's external. So did anybody?
Another-
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna add another source of joy that maybe isn't on this list that I was reflecting on was an abundance of embarrassments. And that really didn't fit in any of these. And yeah, I'll get to that. So there's a little story there. Is that, well, the context is middle school. When I was a little boy in middle school, first of all, I had red hair, so you're kind of, pinged on for teasing all the time. And my dad thought, well, I need to be in some sort of organization. So he signed me up for 4-H. I lived in rural New Jersey. And we didn't have a big spread of property. It was only 3 acres, so we couldn't do horses, couldn't do cattle. So we decided to do sheep. It was very practical, so we had a large lawn. We figured we could mow the lawn for us. So I started off with 1 sheep. And it's Good Shepherd Day. So and the problem started when my sister decided to name the sheep after me. And it was embarrassment. It was a ewe, so it wasn't a ram. So the sheep became Marcella. And if you've been on a farm, then you know that you never name your livestock because you're not going to slaughter your livestock, especially if it's named after you.
I couldn't slaughter a sheep.
So this sheep became a pet of ours, and sheep are just, they become attached to you.
Yeah, they do.
Marcella would walk into the kitchen if we left the door open, or, she would find a spot on the couch, get out of here. And one day, since it was rural New Jersey, I had to take the bus to school, and I was late, so I go storming out, going across the lawn, running to catch the bus, and Marcella got out. Usually I put her in the pen, but Marcella got out, and have you ever seen a sheep run? It's hilarious. It's like hopping. They can't stride. So if you can picture it, here's this little redheaded guy who's beelining for the bus, and then there's this. And I get on the bus, and I said, "I'm so sorry I'm late." And the bus driver says, "Take care of your sheep." So she actually waited there, and the traffic's lined up on Route 31, and I'm putting the sheep away, I come back, and when I come back, of course, from that day forward, I was known as the sheep herder at school. So in middle school, it was like so exciting. It's like, embarrassing. My face was redder than my hair. But since then, whenever we tell the story at family gatherings or Thanksgiving, everybody just laughs and laughs. So do I. It's just hilarious. So that's what I mean. It's not really on here. This idea of an abundance of embarrassment, that you ever look back at some of the foolish things you've done, and it was such a big deal back then. And now you just laugh at it.
And I think in some ways, maybe the joy comes from the relief of the fact that you can tell the story and not suffer anymore.
Yeah, or I'm no longer that little kid.
That's not bad.
Well, I think I would, I guess many other people do, when you've had what we refer to as a mountaintop experience, that would be, you normally associate with being full of joy.
Is that spiritual radiance?
Wow, yeah.
Good memory.
I wonder, I've known a number of folks who always look on the dark side of life.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a way of thinking about a joy that's the exact opposite of that. It's not like everything is always great, but you can see things beyond the fact that it's dark. And it's different than contentment, it's different than happiness. It's just, gosh, can't you just leave that other stuff alone? It just always seems to veer that direction, and it brings everything else kind of down.
So when you're walking in your neighborhood and the couple with a brand new baby comes by, and you get to say the baby's so cute, and the parents are so proud, and it's just uplifting to be with them. So you can have a dark world, but walk upon a walk. an antidote to that, like facing the fact that you can't be dark about this little thing? Is that or the little bird splashing in the bath? I find those things have huge value.
Well, one of the things that the Archbishop was asking the Dalai Lama about was this business about why aren't you morose? Because, you know, he said, you've been in exile from your country and you're faithful for 50 years. And he said, yes, but, you know, I've had this wonderful opportunity to experience all this other facets of the world and so forth. So I don't feel like it has been such punishment. So he chose to look to with a different perspective and different eyes and a different attitude. So he made the choice.
Well, he was a gift to the world, and he recognized what he was giving to the world as opposed to being sequestered up in that mountain.
Yeah.
I think one of the big benefits of this book, and probably the purpose of it, is how many people like that person that always sees it, that walks around with a cloud. And I'm not even referring to people who have depression, because you can still find joy even when you have depression. But I wonder if those people are even aware that they may experience joy, but their whole perspective on everything is so dark all the time that they don't realize that when they see that proud couple with their new baby, that's joy, and they don't ever felt, you know what I mean? It's like,
You could be under that,
it
could be a very dark.
it's there and then it goes away. It
Like
just,
the Debbie Downer on
Yeah,
Saturday Night Live, that character.
yeah, and I think, in part, a lot of times, not to get therapeutic about it, but that makes me think, well, if you have grown up in an environment where people don't ever really express joy or see joy, then you kind of learn that. It's a learning pattern as well.
Well, and I think sometimes it's a sort of self-protective thing.
Yeah.
If I don't risk embracing joy, then I can't lose it,
Very good.
you know? And so, they look at the joy thing, whatever that thing is, but they look at it with a yes but. It's like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I can't be very happy now because, and I think for some people at least, that's in their view, a way of protecting themselves from being hurt. Kind of backwards, but there you go.
Reminds me a lot of my dad, who walked around in a negative look at life, and it was always interesting because I was very successful in life, and he could never acknowledge that, nor could he ever say, I love you. Where my mother was exactly the opposite. And I think as I got older, I actually felt sorry for him. But he never recovered from going through the depression and not having anything. And it was just too bad.
Some people didn't recover.
Yeah. So is it easier to experience true joy when things are good?
Yeah, why not?
Well, as Carla was saying, on the antidote, I love that idea. You have to be open to it, to the good bad,
Yes.
to recognize it, to see it, and have some wonder. If you're in a constant state of safe, well, okay, if you're in a state of morose, then it's harder to take that antidote. If you're in a state of safe, happy living, then it's easier.
But you might be content with happy and not realize that you haven't cultivated the deep joy. Because happy is so pervasive.
Yeah. And happy is contentment, so it's not as deep. Is that what you're saying?
And I have to keep going back to what you've talked about, the tumor thing, because I can really relate to that. that wasn't a good time for me, and I experienced some of the most profound joy I've ever had as a result of that. And then, of course, that colors everything else. When I'm feeling morose, I go, "You're here, right? It's a new day. You're upright, you know." And so that makes it easier for me to experience joy. So
I'm wondering if, you know, we all have days that are bad, or even weeks, but we have also, I think everyone here in this room anyway, has developed coping mechanisms for that and ways to talk to yourself when things are bad. And some of you may have figured out mine is making a joke out of it, but I wonder about that, where that comes from.
Having a history of being down and then.
Well, or having a toolbox for digging your way out, and knowing that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And I suppose every one of us has something that, you know, when you realize you've been clobbered, and, you know, you start looking for the way out. I certainly do. Don't you?
Other than shopping?
healthy way, you mean a healthy tool, a toolbox of healthy tools, or?
Bottle of liquor.
No, I think
You call a friend, you do something that keeps you from staying at the bottom for very long.
Run down to my sewing room and just, it's my cave.
Or,
Yeah,
you know,
say
in some
so.
other way, step out of it.
You know, when we had Thomas's Memorial Service, it was closure for us, but we got a real surprise because the 3 boys that showed up that were Boy Scouts with Thomas when he was 12, 13, or 14, hadn't seen those boys in 30 years. And here they are, married, with children, successful careers.
50-year-old
For
man.
us, that was a moment of pure joy.
It was overwhelming.
You know, one of the things that Tutu said in there was, let other people help you, you know, and we should be interdependent. And the fact that they showed up had deep meaning and you know, added another dimension to your
Joy.
Yeah.
Well, I think most of you know this, but we always call Good Shepherd our family. And, you know, we had over 60 cards come in the mail. It was overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. It really was. It still is.
You know, I was gonna say, the fact that we are part of a community gives us an opportunity to build that toolbox. I'm a child of 2 alcoholics. They didn't have much. You know, they didn't have much in their toolbox. And so I certainly didn't learn it from them. And it came from being part of a community.
Well, Jim, you made me think of a somewhat anecdotal story, but I can get through it. So when our son had his Eagle Scout ceremony at our church, and you know, the church, he had this church community, he had teachers, his friends, you know, just a variety of different people came, and he invited, you know, Boy Scouts wasn't all that cool as a senior in high school, you know, and so you catch a lot of flack, particularly when you're, I guess, on the football team and deal with those people. Anyway, yeah, it was stressful. Anyway, so there, you know, there was a joy around the Eagle ceremony, and unbeknownst to him, the Saturday night of his Eagle ceremony, one of his best friends was killed.
Wow.
And, anyway, it was a bizarre accident. But his friends didn't tell him, and they came to his ceremony. And it was, he learned at the reception of the ceremony that this best friend of his had been killed, and everybody just kept, it was Zach's day, and I was like, wow. Anecdotal, but that's what it made me think of. Power of community.
Is that what they call radiant pride?
What?
When our children earn a special honor. Radiant pride. Somebody.
I wonder why of course we celebrate someone's life after they pass, but what would it be like to be more intentional about celebrating someone's life while they're living? I remember Bill Vogel, he was a teacher at Chaparral, and when he passed, I kind of thought some people would show up for the ceremony, but they weren't sure how many, so they hired this venue for it, and there were 800 people. Wow. That's how many lives he touched in his career. And it just was amazing. You don't know how many lives you touch. And you don't have to be a teacher for that to happen. It's
Wasn't
everybody.
that her name, Nora? Yeah.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was, the place is packed. We had standing room only here. Am I got the wrong name?
No,
Yeah,
you
you
didn't.
I just didn't know her at all.
Yeah, but I had no idea who she was beyond a member of the church. But that was a profound community that she had around her.
There's simple things you can do, and one of the things I did when I was halfway through college, I went back and found my calculus teacher, or math teacher from high school, and I just sat with her, went to her house and sat with her and said how much she meant to me. And you could tell the impact on her was really significant. And that's something you can do that's pretty simple, and I'm sure teachers like that don't get that, have people come back and thank them that often.
So, in recognizing the pain others experience, how has this freed you? And I guess that's assuming that it has. Has it freed you, and how has it freed you, I guess, is how would you do that? I'm sorry, it's question number 5 under why are you not morose? I am kind of skipping around because we're covering a lot of things as part of our answer.
Well, and it ties in with the part that the Dalai Lama said, yeah, this sucks, but I remember I'm not the only one who's gone through this, and it in a way, it puts him in the place we were talking about. It puts him in community, so he's not alone. It's like, I'm guessing, like a family group, or it's where people can speak. It's like a 12-step group. You can speak the same language, and people can go, "What are you talking about? You did what? You felt this, what? And you get the bobblehead." And when I read it, I thought, well, that's kind of a weird way of responding. And yet, when I thought about it further, I thought it makes sense because it puts you in community. And not that it's pain Olympics and their pain reduces your pain, but you're not alone.
Yeah, I liked that. I hadn't thought of it that way. I'd only thought of it as, well, my pain is nothing compared to everybody else's.
Or
And I
gratitude.
diminish my pain,
Or gratitude.
as opposed to, oh gosh, I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. And we've all got our pain. So I'm not alone, as opposed to diminishing my pain because the other guy's is greater.
Yeah, and I'm not sure diminishing your pain is helpful.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Well, but I think,
It's not.
I certainly think that, I didn't really hear it in my family too much, but, what are you crying about? you know, there's other people suffering. I think
That's
societally,
different.
in many ways, we get conditioned that way, as, you know,
Our pain is nothing
yeah,
compared
yours is
to.
nothing, you're pretty privileged.
But this is different.
Yeah,
This is,
Yeah.
we're all in the same boat and we're not alone.
And I think it helps when you're sharing compassionately your experience. That is, you don't have to actually say a word, but you feel for the other person, which actually just gives you less time to feel for yourself.
Yeah, that was a point,
Yeah.
part of the check.
Well, I think one of the things that, a suggestion that is often made is that when you're feeling really down, go out and volunteer.
Yeah.
Get out with people.
Yeah, you know, and that puts things in a different perspective. They're doing something that's.
I remember John Kerner, whose name is out here, the day before he died, he of course knew he was dying, and he comforted the internists and said, I know this isn't what you trained for. And it's not your fault.
wow.
And Douglas Adams, of course, writes about this a little bit, and he says, this is far from don't worry, be happy, as the popular Bobby McFerrin song says.
Yeah.
This is not a denial of pain and suffering, from anguish to compassion. It's a shift in perspective,
Where are we?
and you'll probably get into this, because
20,
this is on page
37.
37. The shift in perspective, and that's one of the 3 pillars.
Right.
Get into that,
Right.
creating joy, shifting that perspective. That when we are dealing with pain, it's not to try to avoid it, but to acknowledge it. How you react to it is your choice.
When does Sunday school start downstairs?
20 past. Theoretically, 10:30 in reality.
Let's move on to the next section on nothing beautiful comes without some suffering questions.
Well, that sounds so Buddhist.
Yeah. So there's a quote on page 43, I think some suffering, maybe even intense suffering, is a necessary ingredient for life, certainly for developing compassion. So just as kind of a benchmark, has reading this book changed your feelings about the value of challenging
Challenging what?
times?
To me, it makes you stronger. I mean, I always feel that way. I have a friend that really has had a life, you know, everything's been lovely, except maybe losing her parents, and she just doesn't get it, you know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't share things with her, but I think of things that I've had of suffering, it made me stronger, you know? I mean, that's how you grow. You don't grow eating chocolate-covered strawberries every day or whatever.
We'll try.
But,
You know the expression AFGO? It's another, and then the F word, growth opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. But that's a perspective thing, right? It's totally a perspective.
That doesn't come.
Where do you hang out?
That growth through suffering doesn't come automatically.
No.
I go back to my mother because she went through the Depression, but then she married my father and he provided well for her. And she lived well, but she always carried this, it's like, she was so burdened by the past and couldn't redeem it. She couldn't the suffering was never moved into developing compassion. So some people suffer and they turn bitter, and some people suffer and they develop compassion. I think of Corrie ten Boom.
Yeah.
You know, so she's an example of suffering,
And she didn't get that immediately. She was mad at her sister most of the time.
Yeah, but we're all mad at our sister, come on.
Some people like, you know, who Corrie ten Boom was?
No. Well, we won't tell.
There you go, making a joke.
Just
Who's Corrie ten Boom? Corrie ten Boom is Dutch. Well, she's not with us anymore. But during the Nazi occupation, she and her sister went to
Ravensbrück.
which one was it?
Ravensbrück.
Ravensbrück, and had to do hard labor, like breaking up stones. And her sister was quite sick. I don't remember her younger brother sister.
Sister every night would find something among the people that were actually attracted to her sister's compassion, actually. Every night in the dormitory, she would find something to be joyful about or thankful for, like their lice kept the guards out of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
remember
okay.
that.
So this is, you know, and it just drove her sister nuts because her sister, you know, wanted to rail and complain, and anyway, Corey's sister had this idea of suffering and going from there to compassion and gratitude and joy, and it drove her nuts. Anyway, she finally caught on.
She finally caught on.
And then after she was released, which she claims was an administrative mistake, but also a miracle, and lived through this. She spent years after the war teaching people how to reconcile, how to live with the neighbor next door without it.
Thank you. Well done.
I didn't mean to tell.
So I'm assuming there's a book about her.
Oh, yeah.
She wrote her book.
Oh, what's the name of it?
just Google Corrie ten.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It was a
It was big.
big deal about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
50 or 60
Which is
years
how
ago.
I,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I still marvel looking at my mother, who remained bitter about that time and not really relishing all the gifts she had as a present. Because she'd always go back to what happened in the past. Even though our present was good. But then there were those who move on from that, and not only that, but they live lives of service and compassion. How do they do it?
I think if you live a life of service and compassion, that is what you protect yourself with, not trying not to have that experience.
I think once again, it's a frame of reference. There's either, for whatever reasons or combination of reasons, you choose or you reflect back on what's happened in the past and can't come out of that, or you develop or are taught resilience, or not to bother to.
So you have to be willing to be taught.
Yes, well, yeah,
You have to be
and-
open to a new way.
And intentional. It's like the toolbox where the antidote for the bird bath only works if you take the medicine, the antidote. So you have to stop and ask yourself, can I reframe this?
And I think it takes courage.
To be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And if you witness someone else doing that, I think that's one maybe way of discovering that, maybe I can do that too. Maybe see somebody else.
Which brings back the community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just reminded of I can't totally quote this, but the gist of it is, a therapist said this, not to me. I'm not gonna cheat you out of the opportunity to make yourself miserable. I thought, I like that.
Okay,
Anyway,
but if you'd like a little bit of input.
right. Be happy to help you reframe that. If you're a parent, how does the experience of parenting prepare you for spiritual work? I just thought I'd throw that in for a laugh.
You didn't kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yet.
Well, it certainly teaches impermanence.
Yes.
You know, what you think is gonna happen, you can't, you rarely predict how they're gonna respond to anything. You can make the best plans in the world, but boy, you better have a plan F, G, H, J, K, and L as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been grandparents for seven months today. Talk about some joy here.
Congratulations.
And it's fun. I haven't changed the diaper yet. Fed her is fun, and after I feed her, hey mom. And I think we're gonna have fun watching our daughter go through our experiences.
Yeah.
Smile.
And you're going, I told you.
'Cause we had a very strong little daughter.
It's the shot before.
Yes, exactly.
We have a very strong little daughter. She hasn't, about 13, she says, I'm never going to church again, and she hasn't. I mean, she's 33 now. And we're working on that. Because, the other thing is interesting how it comes around. They said, Dad, we gotta get Sophie baptized, and I about fell off the chair.
What, is it an
The
insurance
two agnostics are talking
policy?
about baptism. So we're having that discussion, which is, and I said, well, you know the baptismal vow? She goes, no. I said, well, we'll talk through them. And
Good.
you're supposed to take a part in that. So they're discerning that now. So,
good.
but it's fun, but it is. So
What I-
grandparenting has definitely been more fun than parenting.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah. What I remember is turning around and looking at this child that I thought I knew everything about, and they would be so different. And it had only been 3 weeks ago when they were predictable in one category, and they had gone well beyond anything, that you thought would happen.
Taking after Harry or what?
Well, but, yeah, so, in that way, it was definitely, it wasn't me. I mean, I hadn't done that. It was, I think, the Holy Spirit and community that did that.
It's like our daughter telling us that, look, I know every trick in the books, so my 2 sons are not gonna get away with that. And we just smile.
Especially the younger one. He's cute. On that same note, cleaning up everything in the condo and the garage and visiting with the people. This was a kid we didn't know. He was really a giver and what would you call him?
Very public servant.
A lifting spirited person. I mean, his kidney doctor. Dr. Mears, thought of him as a son. Because every time he had dialysis, it's this part of the building and this part of the building is where his office is. He would walk around and talk to everybody and go up to the doctor's office and say, 3 times a week, every week. And then when we were going through his, garbage, boxes had junk in it. But all this Jesus stuff, like, holy cow, he didn't go to church, but he had all this Jesus stuff. He just blew our minds. But we didn't know. He didn't share it with us.
Nor did he tell you that he was holding furniture in the garage or something.
Good thing you didn't donate that.
Well, yeah, he told the people, don't tell my parents. Okay. I think the bottom line to all our suffering, and I don't know if Jim taught it to me or I taught it to him or we learned it at some church along the way, is every experience is an opportunity.
Or you'll look back on this someday and you'll realize the relevance somehow. And I think that's a perspective as well.
Mhm.
You can think that way or you can not.
Harry, sure he isn't listening, so it's no problem.
Just don't speak up.
After Harry moved with every construction job, so we had 13 former addresses in 25 years. And he would look back, without my, I wasn't looking back, I was looking forward, but he looked back one day and he found that in every move, there was a reason. Something that we did in that location that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been there. And he found that, and I began to look with him, and I had to agree that that was what was going on. But, you know, and that was a huge spiritual step for him, just incredible.
We agree with your experience because every church, every community we belong to, it was because God wanted us there for a reason.
So, you know, and I suppose that's true of every person sitting here or every person in the building, if they could get that perspective to look back, they would find the same thing.
That's why we were on the board of examining chaplains together. You got that, right?
Maybe not.
No, because I wasn't assigned, and you found, and I wouldn't have known you if we
That's
had.
right, and she got here.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yes.
That's right.
Anyway, that little path, yeah.
Last week I saw or heard an interview with Mary Louise Kelly on NPR, which is the anchor of her previous news hour. She wrote a book on They Grow Up Too Quickly. So that goes back to your idea. All these experiences are opportunities, and you could miss out on an opportunity if your mind is someplace else. It was all in the context of she's a type A personality. She was, anchor on NPR for over a decade. When kids were coming of age, she was missing out on all these experiences.
Still suffering. Without suffering, there can't be compassion. Surely there's a better way to do it.
The pill for that.
Yeah. Antidote.
I want to save 5 minutes maybe at the end to do an intention setting exercise, but I have a couple of questions I'm interested in getting answers to. When our days are focused on just getting through, how do we make room for this larger spiritual pursuit of being able to find joy in?
I think you stop spending your day just trying to get through, and you spend your day being where you are.
And so when we don't do that, just to add on to that, what is it that's getting in our way?
Our own selves. Our drive to maybe accomplish a certain thing that we hold a tight grip on, thinking that we're the only ones that can do it.
That makes me think the last time I went to St. Clair's and, my thought was, well, a couple hours, get through this, I'll do all these dishes and so forth. And then somebody came in and said, hey, why don't you take a break and grab something to eat? And the joy of that whole experience was talking to the clients out there and just sitting with them. And I guess there was a fear, scare of what do I say or how do I do this? And yet, when you think back on it, there was a lot of joy there.
If you want it on a daily basis, I feel that I need to be intentional, almost mechanical about it. So what I started doing about 2 years ago is when I wake up, instead of start processing what I'm going to be doing today, I start with the loving kindness prayer. I don't know if you've heard of that. And then do some meditation. Because if I skip that and say, oh yeah, I'll just do the meditation after breakfast. Oh no, it never works out that way. So for me, I found that I have to put it at a time where I know it's not going to
So typical type A, you have to schedule in spiritual time.
Right.
From 8 to 9.
And then at the end of the day, it was the retired bishop, I forget his name now, but I remember him saying that he reads Day to Day, the little booklet, and I was having trouble sleeping, and so I tried that. Man, did that work? Yeah, so now, before I go to bed, I read that little passage, and I end my day on a solid piece of note. It's a little better. It's the end, bookends. Everything else can be noise.
Have any of you been reading this book right before you go to bed? Have you noticed any difference in how you sleep or how you wake up the next day? Or maybe could going forward?
That'd be a good experiment. Homework assignment.
Yeah, I thought it's been, I've had a good experience of it. So if you don't mind, I'll end abruptly. There are joy practices at the end of most of your books if you have this book. And so I thought we'd take a few minutes to do one of the joy practices they coincide with the chapters in the book, by the way.
Because I don't want to joy.
What? You don't want any joy?
I don't want to joy.
Okay, there's a,
You write that down, right?
yeah, and you took
Check
the
that.
questions for next week already, okay, bye.
Like,
Yeah, so it doesn't help you to read it, because I'm gonna kind of walk you through it, it's a bit of a meditation. So, a little bit along the lines of what Mark was saying, if you start your day, it's helpful, it can be helpful to start your day with an intention. I've myself just simply gotten that down to waking up in the morning and saying, today I'm going to focus on serving God, and I'm going to treat people with compassion. Does it work? Most of the time, it doesn't always, but we're a work in progress. And so this is something that the Tibetan monks also do, is set their day with intention. So if you will, if you're comfortable doing this, you don't have to. So get comfortable in your chair. It's most helpful if you put both your feet on the floor, or I guess you can sit cross-legged, like that. And for what it's worth, you can do this before you get out of bed in the morning. You don't have to sit or sit cross-legged or anything. So close your eyes and take several long, deep breaths through your nose. As you breathe, feel your stomach expand. So you're breathing from your diaphragm. Continue to take some deep breaths. Exhaling through your mouth. Noticing your breath. Some aspect of it, whether it's the feeling of the air going into your lungs, out of your nose. And ask yourself, what is my heart's desire? What do I wish for myself, for my loved ones, and for the world? Dalai Lama has a simple way of testing our intentions. Is it just for me, or is it for others? What is my heart's desire? What do I wish for myself, for my loved ones, for the world? And with that in mind, to yourself, state your intention for the day. Perhaps today you would greet everyone with the love that's in your heart. Today you may choose to be less judgmental. Be specific. Be gentle. If you don't know what your intention is, you can repeat one of the following lines that comes from the Tibetan prayer, the four immeasurables. They are, may all beings attain happiness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings never be separated from joy. May all beings abide in equanimity. all beings attain happiness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings never be separated from joy. May all beings abide in equanimity, loving kindness. So with those thoughts, let's take another big deep breath. Come back to the room, come back to your day. Go in peace. To love and serve the Lord. So the questions for next week are on the calendar.